For faith and determination, won't lose the vision here, carried away by emotion. Hold on to all that you hide in your heart, 'cause there is one thing that has always been true. It holds the world together. God is in control. We believe that His children will not be forsaken. God is in control. We will choose to remember and never be shaken. There is no power above or beside Him, we know. Oh, God is in control. Oh, God is in control. The story marches on. There is a bottom line drawn across the ages. Culture can make its plan, but the line never changes. No matter how the deception may fly, 'cause there is one thing that has always been true, and it will be true forever. God is in control. We believe that His children will not be forsaken. God is in control. We will choose to remember and never be shaken. There is no power above or beside Him, we know. Oh, God is in control. Oh, God is in control. He has never let you down. Why start to worry now? Why start to worry now? He is still the Lord of all we see, and He is still the loving Father watching over you and me. Watching over you, watching over you, watching over me, watching over me, watching over you, watching over you, watching over me, watching over me, watching over you, watching over every little sparrow, every little bee. God is in control. We believe that His children will not be forsaken. I am Dominique Queen, and I am so excited to welcome you to this Sunday's virtual experience. There is no Sunday, and you all cannot see it on Facebook, but we have so many beautiful faces representing their college home. We got Indiana State University, Georgia State University, Morehouse, of course, is in the building. Central University. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm being prophetic. Amen. Amen. Listen, I want to see all of your family and your friends as you all join in on our virtual experience. Will you tell us where you all are watching from? Will you let us know what college you attended? Listen, we have an amazing college ministry here. Don't just take it from me. I have someone here, one of our college students. Mommy, can you come and let us know exactly how amazing the college ministry is?
compassion, a love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of a Savior.
All right. Give it up for our college students. Listen, we have Fort Valley State University in our Facebook community. Tuskegee. Anybody here from Tuskegee University? All right. Good morning from Long Island. Good morning, Andrew. Listen, it's College Sunday. We are so excited behind me. The King Chapel Gospel Choir. Will you give God some praise for the King Chapel Gospel Choir and Reverend Kimberly Brown, the director of Chapel Arts Ministry? They are our special guests, and we are so excited to have them with us.
Take me as you find me, all my fears and failures. Fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. I surrender. A Savior, He can move a mountain. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. My Savior, He can move a mountain. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move a mountain. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. My Savior, You can move a mountain. My God, You're mighty to save. You are mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, You rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. That Jesus shine a light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Shine a light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine a light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King.
Visions that can change the world, trapped inside an ordinary girl. She looks just like me, too afraid to dream out loud. And though it's simple, your idea, it won't make sense to everybody. You need courage now if you're gonna persevere. My purpose, you gotta answer when you're called. So don't be afraid to face the world against all odds. Keep the dream alive, don't let it die. If something deep inside keeps inspiring you to try, don't stop and never give up. Don't ever give up on you. Don't give up. Every victory comes in time. Work today to change tomorrow. It gets easier. Who's to say that you can't fly? Every step you take, you get closer to your destination. You can feel it now. Don't you know you're almost there? Oh, yeah, yeah. Gotta answer when you're called. So don't be afraid to face the world against all odds. Keep the dream alive, don't let it die. If something deep inside keeps inspiring you to try, don't stop and never give up. Don't ever give up on you. Don't give up. Hold the pieces to complete the puzzle. The answer that can solve a mystery. Yeah. The key that can unlock your understanding. It's all inside of you. You have everything you need. So keep the dream alive. Don't let it die. If something deep inside keeps inspiring you to try, don't stop and never give up. Don't ever give up on you. Sometimes life can place a stumbling block in your way, but you gotta keep the faith. Bring what's deep inside your heart to the light, and never give up. Don't ever give up on you. No. Don't give up. No, 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 no. Don't give up. No, 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 no. Don't give. It is
is said that life is a journey filled with adventures and miracles. I welcome you to this another segment of the Gen Z chat space where today we will see how some of those miracles came alive. I am Marissa Bailey. It is October, or Pinktober as many call it, where we bring greater awareness to breast cancer. Breast cancer is a commonly diagnosed cancer in women. In 2020 alone, there were 684,996 deaths from breast cancer globally. For this year, it is estimated that over 608,000 people will die of breast cancer. Morbid, I know, but today in the Gen Z chat space, we have two beautiful, special, and strong women who defied statistics and are now breast cancer free. My guests are Renee Evans Grant and Luana Harrison, both of whom will relate to our listeners their story about the will to survive. Renee and Luana, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to share your story with us.
Thank you, Marissa, for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's my privilege. Luana, I'm going to start with you, and we're going to talk a little bit about your moments leading to your diagnosis. I know you're a graduate of the St. Andrews High School for Girls and fresh out of high school on the verge of greater academic pursuits. Your life took an unexpected twist. So I want you to tell our listeners about your experience in high school and how you imagined your life would be like after high school.
Well, I think my experience in high school was almost like any other young lady going to an all-girls school. You know, it had its high moments and its low moments, but overall, I think my time at, St. Andrew High School for Girls was awesome. After high school, I had a lot of dreams and plans. I went on to UTech for 4 years. I did business administration there, and after UTech, I migrated to the United States and spent some time doing more schooling at Nova Southeastern, and then going into banking. Nice. And then going into banking. And not too long ago, actually, last year, 2020, when this whole world was facing, the pandemic, I actually got diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer about 2 months before my birthday.
Wow.
So that kind of changed my world and my perspective on life.
So basically, you were cruising in life. You did a first degree at UTech, migrated to the US, did a master's at NSU, right, in banking. So
I did it in general management, yes.
Okay, so you had big dreams of becoming this consummate financial advisor. And then those dreams, recalculated or rerouted.
Right, correct. It was actually in February of last year, so it's kind of still the new year. So I had like plans, New Year's resolutions, everything written out, all my plans for the year, starting an events company, launching the company. I had a lot of plans for the new year.
And you said that this was 2 months before your birthday, and this happened in February. So you're born in the best month of the year, April.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Right. So, Renee, I know your experience might have been a little different, but I want you to just share with us how you got to the point of diagnosis. I know you had already got married, started a family, you became a mother, and in the prime of your life, when many mothers will be busy making much of their toddler and working hard to be that consummate professional and wife, you had to make that U-turn. So walk us through the moments leading up to your diagnosis. And I'm going to get back to you, Luana, because you need to explore yours a little bit more.
Okay, well, first, so I was diagnosed in 2019. In 2018, my family and I, we moved from New Jersey to South Florida. Our primary reason for doing that was to be, closer to family so that our daughter could grow up around her cousins and, etc. That was something that was important to us. So we decided to make that move from New Jersey to South Florida. And that move was just a total, move on faith, because I had given up my job in New Jersey. I had no job. And moving to Florida, I had to, find a new job, etc. Anyway, I managed to find a job within a month at the University of Miami.
Awesome.
And so, with a new move and a new job, you have to find new doctors and things like that, right? So in the following year, this is 2019, I think it's around February or March, I went in for my regular gyno checkup, pap smear, do the usual whole thing. And, she said everything was fine. And my doctor said to me, she's like, everything is fine. Everything looks good. Make sure that when you turn 40, that you schedule your mammogram, right? Because 40 is the age that they start, screening women is a recommended age for screening women for breast cancer, right, at 40. And so I said, okay, great, fine. I was turning 40 that year in October. And so I was like, okay, so whenever I turn 40, I'll just schedule that mammogram. And I remember leaving the office, and the receptionist, he said to me, he's like, okay, I see a note here that your doctor says that you should schedule a mammogram when you turn 40 and whatever. And I said, yes, I remember, and I'll do it. And I just went on with life, the usual, go to work, take care of my daughter, etc. A couple weeks later, out of the blue, someone calls me from the UHealth system at University of Miami and says, I'm calling to schedule you for your mammogram. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. Already? And she's like, yeah, why not? Your insurance will pay for it. So why not just schedule your mammogram and get it over with? So I'm like, okay. So scheduled my first mammogram, right? And it's honestly only because she called me why I did it then. Exactly. So, I scheduled the mammogram, went in, did it, not expecting anything was going to, show as an issue. I think maybe a week later or maybe 2 weeks, I'm not remembering the time frame correctly, but I got another call saying that they wanted me to come back in to do a diagnostic mammogram and an ultrasound. And the reason was because they saw an area of microcalcifications that was concerning to them. So I said, okay, all right. So, I made, they made the appointments. I went in, I did the diagnostic, I did the ultrasound. At the end of the diagnostic mammogram, my radiologist tells me that they couldn't determine whether or not it was benign or malignant. And so at that point, they said, I have to come in and do a biopsy. So I scheduled the biopsy, went in. I distinctly remember it was a Thursday and Thursday afternoon. And prior to going in for the biopsy, my radiologist, said to me, I because of your age, this is why we're doing it like this, because what I'm seeing, I'm concerned, but I'm very concerned that, there might be something there. And so we have to really, take a better look at it. So went in, did the biopsy. About 2-3 days later, I got the call. I was at work. And my radiologist called me and, he said, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but, we did find malignant cells in the biopsy that we took. And so the next steps, and I mean, we're going to get into this, but, you know, so after hearing that, he's like, you know, the next steps is that we have to do an MRI because they needed to determine the extent of the disease. And because I had such dense tissue, which by the way is a risk factor that I did not know, because I have dense tissue, it's hard for them to see sometimes on the mammogram. The MRI is much more sensitive and they can see things clearer with the MRI. So they ordered me to to have an MRI done to determine the extent of my disease. And I think I'll stop there because
just one quick question that I want to put in. You said that you're married, right?
Yep.
You've been married for how long?
8 years.
And you've been a mother for how long?
7 years.
So, wow. So I haven't gotten that call from your radiologist to say, you know, I'm so sorry. What was running through your mind at that time, considering that you have this young marriage going on, your husband and your daughter? Was running through your mind at that time?
Yeah. My daughter she was 4 at the time. And when I got the call, I mean, I was in shock. I immediately started crying on the phone. And, you know, the radiologist is like, he's on the other line. And, you know, it's kind of hard because he's not seeing me in person. You know, this is all happening over the phone and I'm crying over the phone. And, you know, I'm thinking, my first question to him actually was, what's my prognosis?
Mm.
And he said, based on the type that we're looking at, your prognosis is good. And so I said, okay. And I don't remember anything else after that in that conversation. But after that, my next thought was I have to call my husband and let him know. And which I did, and I'm still crying on the phone.
You were at work at this time.
I'm
too,
at
so
work.
how was it, you know, being in the office space?
I'm at work. I walked outside. I mean, if you've ever been on the campus of University of Miami, there's a lot of open space and greenery. So I walked outside. I mean, I just kept walking. I didn't know where I was walking to. I just kept walking, and I'm on the phone, and I have the phone in my hand. And, you know, I think a million thoughts probably were going through my mind, you know, prognosis, like, will I survive? You know, what would happen to my daughter? What, you know, all of these things are going through my mind, racing through my mind all at once.
Right. So, Luana, you said that you had stage 2 breast cancer.
Yes.
Right? But how did you get to that realization? I know Renee explained that, you know, she had to do the scheduled mammogram because she was, you know, on the verge of becoming 40. And so she was due to do a scheduled mammogram because that's a recommended age for women to do their mammogram. But you were young, you were 26.
Yes, 26, yes.
So what propelled you to, you know, get tested? Were you feeling pains? Were there any signs?
My story is a little bit funny. Well, when I look back, actually, it's a little bit funny. So it was about December 2019. And well, here in Florida, it doesn't get super cold, but like for Jamaicans in Florida, like it's cold enough.
Cold.
It's cold
I know
enough.
that too well.
So I remember driving home and it was just cold. Even though I was in the car, it was cold. And I don't know, for me, it's just a natural thing. Whenever I get cold, I try to put my hand somewhere warm. So I had put my hand in my shirt, like, you know, in my breast. And I remember feeling something on my left breast, and I was like, oh, that kind of feels weird. But then it wasn't alarming because, you know, as a woman, you know, we go through so much with, you know, our menstrual cycle. So I'm just thinking, all right, maybe it's that time of the month coming up. So, you know, probably that's just tender for that moment. So I kind of just let it be. You know, that time of the month came and it passed. And then I was in the shower and I felt it again. And I was like, all right, this really shouldn't still be there. So I remember
more than
calling,
alarming.
right. So I called my mom into the room and I said, all right, mommy, you feel something? And she said, well, yeah, something is there, but you can just ask the doctor. So, all right. So I said, no problem. So January came around and this is the time when, all the doctors calling you to schedule your annual, your checkups that schedule with my
Executive
gynecologist
profile.
because I don't really go to the doctor, to be honest, unless I'm sick, and I'm never ever sick, The most I'll ever have in life are cramps. So I'm never sick to, end up at the doctor or anything. But I made my appointments and I went in January, did my, pap smear and everything, the regular, everything seemed normal. And then I mentioned to the doctor because gynecologists don't necessarily check your breast.
Right.
That's not their go-to first. So, I mentioned to him, feel this lump because it feels like a lump to me, but just, you tell me. So at this point, I'm not thinking it's anything. I'm just like, probably just one of those things that, your body does things.
Yeah.
So he felt it and his immediate reaction was, oh, no, you're young. You're fine. This is nothing. However, because you said something about it, I'll recommend an ultrasound, but you're young. I'm pretty sure it's nothing. So I'm like, okay, great. That's good to hear. I'll surely do the ultrasound. But now I'm saying, all right, perfect. This is nothing. I went to do the
How long
ultrasound.
after you did the ultrasound?
I went to do the ultrasound about a week after. We have a Martin Luther King, like a Monday holiday, and I worked at the bank. So I have Mondays off. So the Monday off. So I said, okay, let me go do it. I went to get the ultrasound done. And I remember the nurse came back into the room after doing the ultrasound and she said, the doctor wants you to do a biopsy. And I'm like, a biopsy? I'm like, no, this is where it was supposed to end. The doctor said it was nothing alarming. So this is where it was supposed to end at the ultrasound. So I said, okay, at this point, I'm like, all right, I'll do whatever it takes just to, just to be okay. So I went to do the biopsy probably about a week after because they're quick on, getting things done. So I went to get the biopsy done. First thing that kind of struck me when I went into that office was they gave me like a questionnaire to fill out and everything was pertaining to like cancer history. And so I kind of got nervous. I'm in the doctor's office and my belly start to hurt me because I'm like, oh no, this doesn't look good. This doesn't sound good. All these questions. And I'm here checking no to every question because I have history of nothing, nothing going on. Anyway, I went into the room with the doctor and the doctor said to me, Luana, I took a look at the ultrasound and it, the characteristics of the mass really looks like cancer, but we're going to do the biopsy to be sure. But I'm telling you this before we do the biopsy. And that's when I felt like everything in me just kind of started to shut down because I was like, we haven't even done the biopsy yet. Like, I want some more hope. Let's not go there because I wasn't prepared for this.
And you were 26.
Yes, I was 26.
Stands out for me. You're 26.
Exactly. And I have no history of it in my immediate family for me to think about. No. Well, okay. So at this point, there's no history. So I have no history of it. Nobody around me, just, regular hypertension, stuff like that. So I'm not thinking cancer at all.
Right.
I've never been in pain.
Right. So there are no concerns about breast cancer?
Nothing. No concerns, nothing at all. So, did the biopsy and the doctor told me I would get the results in a week. So I was also at work the Friday when the doctor called me. And I just felt in me that when he called me, I knew what he was going to say because he was already saying, based on how it looked and everything. So I kind of already prepared myself that entire week for both sides of the coin, basically. I wasn't trying to be in denial and say, oh, no, I'm young. This is not it. I kind of prepared myself for both. I said, okay, God, it might be it and it might not be it, but I'm preparing myself for both. So when he called me on Friday, it still hurt, to hear, Luan, I'm sorry to tell you, but it is breast cancer. We caught it early. We're going to start you on aggressive treatment. You're young. You have a pretty good outlook. So, those are comforting words, but I feel like in that moment, nothing was able to comfort me. Like in that moment, all the emotions just came down. I was crying. Everybody at work came. They called my mom. They said, can you drive home? Do you want us to take you home? I said, no, I'll drive home myself. I cried the entire way home. I was calling my dad. It was really emotional because it was just, nothing I expected at this time in life. I just never saw this coming. So it really, got me hard.
Right. And you're an only child, or you had siblings that you had to
No, I have two siblings. I'm the first, so I have a younger brother and sister.
So hearing your story would have probably, made them feel
and
depressed and sad and
right.
Okay, why is this happening to my big sister? This is my hero, Why is this happening? Right. So how exactly did you break this diagnosis to your siblings, your younger siblings?
So the good part about it is that my dad and my brother are medical doctors. So for them, they were on the train from the beginning. So it wasn't too alarming for them. They were just asking me the questions like, make sure you ask your doctor this, make sure you ask your doctor that, what are you feeling? They were more trying to be that support medically.
So you have that medical support. Right?
Yes. So, even though I know it kind of hit them emotionally, but they were super strong in terms of, all right, this is our field. We're going to help you to fight this, based on all our knowledge. My sister now, she's 17 years younger. So she, she's really young. So it really got to her more. She was really crying because in her head, like most people, when you hear of cancer, the first thing you think of, okay, this person's going to die. They're not going to make it. And they're going to die a painful death. That's what people think when they think of cancer. So for her, she was just overwhelmed and she was crying. And I really couldn't comfort her in that, beginning, because I was a little bit scared myself of, okay, how is this going to turn out? So it was a bit emotional in the beginning.
So we're at the stage now when you both are diagnosed with the breast cancer. So both of you got calls on the phone. So you weren't physically at the doctor's office when you were diagnosed and when you would have received the news, right?
Right.
And you've explained, what went through your mind, what you did when you got the news, you called your family. Did friends get factored into this, breaking the news, or was it confined to sharing it with your intimate family members? I know both of you work, so you would have had to share it with your employers. But outside of your family realm, what did you do in terms of sharing the news with other persons who are close to you?
So that's an interesting question. So when I was going through the whole process of the mammograms and the biopsy, I didn't really tell anyone. I was the only other person who knew that I was having, going through all of that and having all that done was my husband. He was the only person. Until one day, my friend, she lives in Toronto. She called me and she said, "Ren, you've been on my mind. And I just felt like I needed to call you for some reason." And so I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yes, I just, felt like I needed to call you." So when she said that, I just pour out the whole story of what was going on to her. And then after I got the diagnosis, I pretty much kept it to myself because I was still trying to process it. I mean, outside of my parents and my husband, I was still processing it. So, I wasn't going around telling a whole bunch of people. And then she reached out to me again that week and she said, any updates, like what is going on. And so, she was probably my first friend that I told of my diagnosis. And I didn't tell my other friends until I think until after I did my MRI and I visited my surgeon. And then I once I got a full picture of what was going on and, what my diagnosis was and, got more details to that, then I started to tell more friends. But for me, it was processing. I had to process the information and kind of go at my own pace. So yeah, that's how I that's how my friends found out. In terms of like my employer, I just have to say that my employer were so supportive and throughout that whole process. When I got the call from my radiologist and after I spoke to my husband, I went in and I spoke to the associate dean of student affairs because she's one of my bosses. And I told her, and she was amazing. She was, she said, don't get in the car to drive right now. Let's go go for a walk. Let's go get some coffee or tea or whatever. And then you go and you get in your car and drive. And, she kept saying, whatever you need, your health comes first. Your health is first, health and family, that comes first. So if you need to take time, if you need to, whatever you need, just you take it. And then when I told my other boss, the director of learning innovation and faculty engagement, he was the same way. He said, your health comes first. Just let me know what you need. We're here to support you, whatever it is that you need. And his boss, who is the VP of academic technologies at the University of Miami, I was walking past his office one day, and he called me in, and he sat me down, and he said, Renee, I heard what is going on, and I just want you to know that whatever you need, we're here. If you need to take time, this is not an easy thing that you're going through. This is some tough stuff that you have to deal with. If you have to take a mental health break, take it, whatever you need. He's like, don't worry about work. You just need to focus on you and your health. So having that kind of support from the people that I work with was really greatly appreciated. And I just can't be more thankful for having that.
All right, and Luana, how did you break the news to your friends and how did they react?
Well, I'm trying to remember how I got my friends involved, but a few of my friends and, probably a few close family members. I remember the day I got diagnosed, I curled up in my sister's bed and I just kept hearing the doorbell ringing. My mom did not hesitate to let that community of people around us know that her daughter needed support that day. So that's how, most of them found out just that day of diagnosis. It was just overwhelming, I think, for my mom. And she just called those who she knew would support me. And they were there. So, my friends are there. A few family members came over and they just came to comfort me. I really didn't have to tell them, everything that he had got diagnosed. That was already done. My mom kind of already did that. So, they just came and they just poured into me and just kept reminding me, okay, we're going to be here. Let me know what you need. At the time, I was dating my now fiance, and it was hard for me to tell him. Well, he already knew all the appointments and everything, but it was kind of hard for me to tell him because, in my head, I'm like, okay, we're not married. So, I don't want to put all this pressure on you because it's going to change my life. And, that was one of the biggest things for me in telling him, because I was like, all right, I'm already going to have to go through this. I don't want to pull another person through it emotionally, and then I don't even know what this journey is going to look like. So I didn't want to pull him along, but he was, super supportive. He was like, you didn't cause this on yourself. So, I mean, what kind of man would I be if I leave now? So, he was there, family and friends were there, about 2 of my high school friends, like, were there when I was crying, they were crying, just showing their support. But yeah, it was emotional breaking the news to family and friends. But
about your church family, because I know you're a Christian.
Yeah, so interestingly, because I got diagnosed like literally right before they announced this pandemic, like I got diagnosed February 21st, and I think it was like the first week in like March that everywhere in Florida was getting shut down. So church got shut down before I was really even able to like pour out anything. And I felt like it was still a little bit early and sensitive. I didn't know what to say yet. So, by the time I started like treatments and everything, and it was obvious that something was going on because I lost all my hair and, my features started to look different. I was home, so nobody saw me. So the church didn't really know until, like halfway through chemo when churches started to reopen. And then, I started to go back to church, and then they were able to see me. I really didn't say to them, hey guys, I was diagnosed with cancer. I felt like they just knew because, sometimes you can just look and tell. So they kind of just knew. So people were just encouraging. They really didn't ask questions about it.
What were you saying to God at this point?
So at the point of diagnosis, I kind of had a moment where I was like, all right, God, I really don't know what's going on right now. But I trust you anyway. Like I feel like you've made so many promises to me and this can't be it. Like, this can't be the end. But I have to trust you, I have to trust you because you know the end, So I have to trust you. I have to believe that whatever the outcome is, that you will receive the glory, even though that was hard for me to believe. I remember going into my mom's closet and just like crying. And I'm like, okay, God, like, I don't want to be selfish and tell you what I want, but I just want to live. But if it is, if this is it and I'm not going to live through this, just still receive the glory, even though that was hard for me. I was just like, I want to be at peace going through this. I don't want to, wake up every day or, not sleeping because I'm fearful that I'm going to die. I wanted to go through it in peace. So I just really asked God, like, please help me to go through this peacefully, no matter the outcome. And that was just me at the time.
Your faith was strong. Stronger than me.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that the strength that I had, I didn't find it in my cancer journey. The strength that I had was strength I deposited before. It was the moments I spent in prayer before and the moments that I spent in worship before that I was able to draw on, because going through chemo and radiation and surgery, I did not have that same strength to pray. I didn't have that strength to worship like I did. So I really had to rely on, me reading the scriptures before and drawing on those scriptures, or me praying before and relying on those prayers.
Right. That's deep. You drew on strength that you had deposited prior in worship and in prayer.
Hi. My name
Unfortunately, that is all we have time for this week. But join us next week when Renee and Luana will continue to walk us through their journeys of surviving breast cancer. My name is Marissa Bailey in the Genz chat space. Thank you for listening. Walk good.
Well, it's a beautiful weather outside and you are still listening our station. That's great. Now, We are listening unknown artist. Lift every voice and sing ARR Roland M. Carter.
Lift every voice and sing to bring with the harmonies of lift every voice and sing my source as high as the listening stars. Let it resound out as the rolling sea. Every voice and sing. Every voice and sing a song. Sing us. Every voice and sing a song. Facing the rising sun. A new day begun. Let us march on till the dawn. Show me the holy strong into the shadowy soul, in the flames that once born Christ died, in the steady feet of the weary soul, to the place for which our stars iniquities has been washed away. Have come, standing on the blood of the slaughter, out of the gloomy past. Stand us, when I lay our thought is ours. princess, oh not where we met thee. Last onward, drunk with the wine of the world we forget. Shall beneath our own, may we forever stand, true to our love, true to our name.
You're listening to CareFM Jamaica on 93.5.
Good morning, sisters and brothers. Welcome to Empowerment Forum on CareFM 93.5. These sessions in empowerment are designed to give practical tips in our Christian walk. This morning, we will look at Teach Us How to Fast. The aim of this Empowerment Forum is to provide practical tips on fasting and how to fast properly and the purpose of fasting. Recently, a good and faithful member of a church died after a 21-day absolute fast. She started to dehydrate and to use indecent language, which she never did before. Some of our fellow believers interpreted her strange behavior to mean that she was demon oppressed and started to drive out demons. However, a relative took her to a medical facility and she was diagnosed and hospitalized, but it was too late and she died. Obviously, she could not manage the absolute fast. And new and young believers who are starting out on fasting should not start with an absolute fast. Jesus did an absolute fast for 40 days and 40 nights. Moses, according to Exodus 34, also was with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights without eating bread or drinking water. But those absolute fasts are for mature, strong believers who are accustomed to fasting. But what is fasting? In the Bible, fasting is generally seen as abstaining from food for spiritual renewal and strengthening. It is not a hunger strike. Neither is it for dieting for the well-being of one's physical self. Fasting is practiced in order to prepare inwardly for receiving strength, grace, and power to fulfill a particular mission. Fasting involves deep spiritual reflection and heightens the awareness of the need for God within the life of the one fasting. Fasting also reinforces the idea of being able to control our bodily appetites and our bodily desires, and not our bodily desires and appetites controlling the Christian. How not to fast? In Isaiah chapter 58, verse 4, it states, "Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife, and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard." Fasting is not for insincere motives. It is not a tool to manipulate God to conform to our will and our wishes quicker. Fasting. Our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ fasted. In Matthew chapter 4, the first 3 verses, Jesus combined prayer with fasting, and he faced temptation set against him, proceeding on God's mission, and as he prepared himself for ministry, in which he would face tremendous threats and obstacles. This fasting was for a special purpose. Fasting was not practiced by the disciples when Jesus was on earth. Matthew 9, verse 14 and 15. Then came he to him, the disciples of John, saying, Why do we and the Pharisees fast oft, but thy disciples fast not? In fact, it was after Jesus' resurrection that we read of the disciples fasting. Since Jesus has ascended into heaven, then today's disciples should and can fast. We must never think of fasting as a way to get God to do something other than he might have done through prayer. Fasting is not a magic or silver bullet. In addition, it is not our fasting, our effort, our working, but it is God who works in all things for good. On the mission field, as we serve God's purposes, we need spiritual strength, sustenance, direction, enabling, and grace. This all comes from God, and thus we need to acknowledge our dependence on God in order to overcome, to resist, and to persevere in the midst of obstacles. Fasting can serve as an exercise which helps us in acknowledging that we ultimately depend on God, because abstaining from food as a spiritual exercise heightens our awareness that we do not live by bread alone, or on human wisdom, or in our own strength. We always need God. Through fasting, as we intentionally give up something physically, we build our capacity to wait, to struggle, and to be patient as our bodies are trained. So we develop the capacity and the appetite to yearn after God's intervention in our lives and to yield to God's will. Fasting helps develop the spiritual appetite, strength, capability, which deepens our trust in God and makes us willing to wait upon God, enables us to wrestle in the midst of opposition, and creates in us a kind of faith that makes us willing to trust God. In the Bible, God's people turn to fasting in response to grievous situations such as death, sin, and tragedy. Sometimes it is not a spontaneous reaction, and we have to prepare to engage in fasting. Fasting helps us to focus our bodies and minds for a particular urgent and important purpose. Fasting does not change God, but it changes the way we pray. We pray with greater urgency for an emergency and greater steadfastness and focus. Fasting also makes us receptive to God's guidance. Fasting is also a way to express grief. Another reason to fast was to seek deliverance and protection from enemies. A further reason to fast was to express repentance toward God and faith in our Lord Jesus the Christ. Fasting can help us focus when we are struggling with great temptations. Fasting can show that we hunger and thirst for love, for the love of God and the love of God's work. Fasting helps us to focus more on the needs of others. What are some practical tips on fasting? Should we have a special day for fasting? That is optional. There is no command for Christians to fast, though we are urged, instructed, encouraged to pray, and though it is assumed that we will fast. There is no command for Christians to fast regularly, but Christians can fast in their desire to receive additional strength in order to maintain focus in the service of God. Remember that fasting is not for show and display, but usually is a personal matter between God and the individual. Matthew chapter 6, verse 16. When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father, who sees what is done in secret. There was a time when some Christian would reserve one day a week for fasting, usually Fridays. In fact, the native Baptists were said to fast on Fridays, but that is optional. But remember, do not advertise that you are on a fast. Perhaps the first time you start a fast, start small, such as a 24-hour fast. And then you can graduate and move to a 36-hour fast. That is missing 3 meals. Then you can try 3 to 7 day fast, which is a big step. Remember also, though, that the first 3 days are said to be the most difficult days in a fast in terms of physical discomfort, headaches, weaknesses, and even dizziness. Who should not fast? Some persons who are advised not to fast include pregnant women, diabetics, and heart patients. If you fall into any of those categories, consult a doctor. Do not binge before a fast. Do not stock up on food in the stomach before a fast. In fact, lighter meals are better a day or 2 before a fast. If the last meal in the stomach is fresh fruits and vegetables, you should not have any difficulty with constipation. At the end of the fast, it can be broken with fruit and vegetable juice. Avoid all salad dressing, grease, or starch. Yes, when you fast, let it prepare you inwardly for strength from God, for deep reflection and a greater awareness of God. Fasting can serve as an exercise which helps us in acknowledging that we ultimately depend on God for wisdom, for strength, and knowledge. May God help you to fast properly. God bless you. This has been Empowerment Forum on CareFM, operated by the Boulevard Baptist Church, 2 Washington Boulevard in Kingston, Jamaica. Thank you for listening.
The Kingston and St. Andrew Baptist Association is delighted to be associated with the inaugural broadcast from FM 93.5, owned and operated by the Boulevard Baptist Church. We wish to congratulate both pastor and members for this significant milestone in its ministry as a center of influence. The Boulevard Church is only the second church in our association to have achieved this feat, and we wish you every blessing as you use this medium as a center for carefully and deliberately spreading the good news of the life-transforming message of the gospel of Christ. While we congratulate the Boulevard Church for this achievement, we pledge to partner with you as together we plan, execute, and share ministry through this important medium. We urge our member churches to support this ministry by encouraging others to listen to the program offerings and in the process enable the effective execution of ministry on FM 93.5, owned and operated by the Boulevard Baptist Church. God bless you. To God be the glory.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, worship Your holy name. Sun comes up, it's a new day dawn. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before, let me be singing, and when the evening comes, so bless the Lord, my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, worship Your holy name. Rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great and Your heart is kind. For all Your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, my soul, oh, my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh, my soul, worship Your holy name. Bless the Lord, my soul, oh, my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh, my soul, worship Your holy name. On that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come. Still my soul will sing Your praise unending. 10,000 reasons and forever. Sing like never before. My soul, worship Your holy name. Bless the Lord, my soul, my soul, worship Nothing compares to the promise I have in you.
I see the King of Glory coming on the clouds with fire. The whole earth shakes. The whole earth shakes. I see His love and mercy washing over all our sin. The people sing. The people sing. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. I see a generation rising up to take the place with selfless faith, with selfless faith. I see a new revival stirring as we pray and seek. We're on our knees. We're on our knees. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Heal my heart and make it clean. Open up my eyes to the things unseen. Show me how to love like you have loved me. Break my heart for what breaks yours. Everything I am for your kingdom's cause. As I walk from earth into eternity.
Good morning, listeners. This morning we introduce a special program called Let's Make Music. Let's Make Music is a corporation of musicians, instrument and voice combined to create a virtual choral production. In this morning's feature, the voices recorded are Jun Eon Sui, soprano and alto from Mesa, Arizona, and Joseph McIntyre, tenor and bass from Boulevard Baptist Church, Kingston, Jamaica. Accompanying us on instruments are Laurie Johnson, flute, and Georgia Swing, piano. Stay tuned and be blessed as we all make music.
He will understand. His grace is all that I need.
Each day I will talk with the Lord. I will come to Him in worship and in prayer. He will hear my plea. He will comfort me. His love will always be there. Hallelujah, hallelujah. My heart sings with glory and with praise. I will serve my Lord all my Each day I will sing to the Lord. I will lift my voice and glorify His name, singing clear and strong. I will raise my song. His wondrous love I proclaim. Hallelujah, hallelujah. My heart sings with glory and with praise. I will serve the Lord all my days. I will serve my Savior and my Lord all my days. Thank you for tuning into Let's Make Music. It is my hope that the program was a blessing to you. As I go, allow me to record a special note of thanks to my technical producer, Stefan Allen. Until next week, Sunday morning, this is Joseph McIntyre saying, walk good and let's continue to make music.
We have come to the end of another Hope for Tomorrow broadcast. Join us next week Sunday morning when we will again come to you live from the studios of CareFm Jamaica, located at the Boulevard Baptist Church and transmitted via 93.5 FM. On behalf of studio engineer Delvin Hutchinson and program moderator Joseph McIntyre, this is assistant program moderator Paul and Malcolm, wishing you a safe and productive week. Until next week, stay safe, wise up, and vax up. Be sure to join us this evening at 6:30 p.m. via our YouTube and Facebook pages for our Ministry Empowerment feature. Unwrap and discover your dominant gifts, led by Sister Sophia Williams. See you there.